I want to be upfront about something before this review starts. I didn't watch Spider-Noir the week it dropped. I didn't race to post a take while the algorithm was hot. That's not how I watch things. I binge watched this properly, I sat with it, and now I'm going to tell you what I actually think. This channel isn't about being first. It's about being honest. If that costs me views, fine. At least you know when I say something's good, I mean it. So, Spider-Noir, I went in skeptical. Nicolas Cage, a noir Spider-Man show set in the 1930s, on Amazon Prime. Every single part of that sentence sounds like a bet that shouldn't work. It works. Let's start with what makes this show genuinely different from every other Spider-Man adaptation, because there have been a lot of them. Ben Reilly doesn't get bitten by a tiny radioactive spider. During World War II, the Germans were running experiments on people. One of those experiments turned a person into something massive, a giant spider hybrid. That's what bit Ben. So he's not just a guy with spider powers. He's half-mutated in a way no other version of Spider-Man is. His biology is fundamentally different. And after the incident, Ben, then a sergeant, was in so much pain that he burned the whole thing down under orders. He's been carrying that for decades. The other villains in the show, also from that same wartime team, same experiments, all of them connected by what happened in that war. That is a darker, messier, more morally complicated origin than anything we've seen in a Spider-Man story. The show is drenched in 1930s noir, fedora hats, long overcoats, rain-soaked streets, Spider-Man as a private detective. My first thought when I started watching was, this feels like Batman, specifically the world's greatest detective angle. I mean that as a compliment. The show commits to its atmosphere completely. And there's a detail I genuinely love. You can watch the show in black and white. Apparently Nicolas Cage pushed for this. It gives viewers the choice of how they experience it. A colorful Marvel show or a proper noir film. That kind of thoughtfulness in production design is rare, and it shows you what the creators actually cared about. Nicolas Cage is great in this. I know that sentence sounds like a setup. It isn't. He's older, you can tell when a stunt double steps in, but he fully inhabits this character. Ben Reilly is worn down, tired, carrying decades of grief, and Cage sells every bit of that weight. Every time he puts the mask on, you feel it. The whole cast is solid, but Cage is the reason this show works as well as it does. There's also a version of Ben that reminded me of older Peter Parker from the Miles Morales era. Spider-Man is someone who's been through it, not someone discovering their powers for the first time. That's a refreshing framing. I need to be honest about episode 1. It's slow. It took me 2 or 3 days to push through to episode 2. If I hadn't known the show got better, I might have stopped there. Don't stop there. Once the show clicks, and it clicks hard around episode 2, it doesn't let go. The slow start is actually doing something. It's taking its time explaining why Ben stopped being Spider-Man. So when he picks up the mantle again, it lands with real weight. But you have to let it breathe. Silvermane is a strong villain, but what I liked most was the writing around the villains. There's a moment around episode 4 where Ben figures out that Silvermane marks every bill he moves with a red dot to track it. So Ben swaps the marked bills for clean money, and suddenly the red dot bills disappear from Silvermane's operation. Silvermane assumes his own right-hand man is betraying him, and he kills him. You might see it coming. The show doesn't care. It explains the logic clearly, it earns the beat, and it moves on. That's confident writing. Then there's Megawatt, the electrically powered villain who the show, and I'm not joking, refuses to call Electro. He goes by Megawatt, which is fine, but it's also impossible to watch him and not think, that's Electro. The comparison is inescapable. I found it more funny than frustrating, but it's worth flagging. The show's biggest surprise is the depth of its character work. Kat, who reads as a black cat setup, and almost certainly is one of the more morally complicated characters I've seen in a Marvel property. She's not on anyone's side entirely. She has feelings for Ben but still loves Flint. She betrayed Ben to save Flint. She's not a villain, and she's not a hero. She's a person making bad choices for understandable reasons. The scene in episode 7 where Flint tells her he can never go back to who he was. He compares it to touching the sun, says you can't return to normal after that, is the best line of the season. It captures everything about what these experiments did to these people. You can't put that back. And then there's Ben and Kat's final scene in episode 8. Kat tells Ben that in another life, she might have chosen him, but she loves Flint. Ben doesn't beg, he doesn't turn bitter, he acknowledges it. And when she tells him to go to hell, he says, "Don't worry, I've got a spot waiting for you there." That's the character in one line. Dry, sharp, a little broken, and completely at peace with it. That's Ben Reilly. Let's be fair about what doesn't land. The early episodes set up a noir detective mystery. Ben is a detective. The atmosphere is built around him investigating things. And by the back half of the season, that detective angle largely disappears. The show shifts into a more action-driven finale structure. For some viewers, that's going to feel like a letdown. If you came for the mystery, for Spider-Man as detective, the show slowly pulls that rug out. I think the character work compensates, but it's an honest criticism. The pacing issue with Ruby's death also bothered me. Ruby's loss was the wound that made Ben stop being Spider-Man. It was his defining tragedy. And by episode 5, he's already in a romance with Kat. The transition feels rushed. The grief deserved more space before the new relationship began. Episode 8 isn't the strongest installment. The earlier episodes had bigger mysteries and more dramatic reveals, but as a finale, it succeeds. It wraps up the major arcs, delivers on the emotional threads, and ends on a note that feels right for the story. The fight sequence callbacks, and they're either intentional homages or just unavoidable Spider-Man iconography, carry that specific energy you recognize. The stretched arm strain of Spider-Man 2, the holding everything together desperation of Homecoming. Whether or not it's deliberate, it works. Ben closes the season back doing detective work. Robbie has his own newspaper company. The city keeps moving. It's not a bombastic ending, it's the right one. Spider-Noir, 8.5 out of 10. Not perfect. The detective angle fades, the pacing occasionally stumbles, and yes, the villain's name is Megawatt. But this is one of the most refreshing Spider-Man stories in years. It takes a premise that shouldn't work, commits to it completely, and ends up with something that has more character depth than most of the MCU. Nicolas Cage was the right call. The noir setting was the right call. The WW2 origin was the right call. It's good. Watch it. If you watched it, let me know what you thought in the comments. Curious whether the detective arc fading bothered anyone else, or if the finale landed better for you than it did for me. I'm Wretvision, and I'll see you in the next one.